Lucie Navarro had once believed in soulmates. Back in high school, her heart had danced to the rhythm of Wattpad fanfics and paperback romances. But New York didn't read like fiction. It moved fast, chewed you up, and asked for more. At 22, fresh out of college, she wasn't looking for love. She was looking for Wi-Fi, coffee, and a break she couldn't afford to take. Working at Linux Corporation, she quickly became the reliable one. Translation: overworked and invisible. Most nights she left the office after everyone else, but tonight was worse. A massive proposal was due in the morning, and something in the numbers didn't sit right with her. So she stayed, red-penning every line like her life depended on it. The air conditioning hummed. Her fingers tapped across spreadsheets, legal clauses, financial terms in fine print. Then, there it was, a clause misfiled, miscalculated, and loaded with risk. A silent bomb no one else had seen. Lucie froze, her breath caught. If this went out in the morning, it could cost the company millions. Her body screamed for sleep, but her mind was on fire. She started rewriting the document from scratch. The office emptied. The cleaning staff came and left. Her inbox went silent. Still, she worked. By 3:47 a.m., she'd triple-checked the changes. She didn't even realize when her head hit the arm of the couch. The iPad, still open, sat glowing beside her like a quiet witness. Soft city light spilled through the blinds. Lucie, curled up with her coat as a blanket, fell into dreamless exhaustion. Somewhere, around dawn, she stirred. A voice, low, calm, male, cut through the silence. "You just saved this company." She blinked. A figure stood above her, holding her iPad. Her heart leapt. She sat up too fast, panic written all over her face. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The man didn't move, only looked down at the glowing screen. He was young, mid-20s. Maybe. Tall, disheveled in a charming way. White shirt rolled at the sleeves. His eyes were sharp but not cold. "Your revision," he said. "You caught it. Most people wouldn't." Lucie swallowed. How do you know that? Are you new here?" She scanned his clothes, casual but office appropriate. "Probably an intern. A ridiculously good-looking intern." "In a way, yes," he replied with a small smile. "I was hoping to stay longer, actually. To help." She blinked, unsure if she was awake or still dreaming. Something about him felt off, but not in a dangerous way. "Well, you scared the hell out of me," she mumbled, trying to smooth her hair and her dignity. "You shouldn't be reading people's stuff." He raised an eyebrow. "You left open on a company iPad." "Touché." She stood, trying not to wobble from exhaustion. "Thanks, I guess, for the compliment. But seriously, who are you?" He hesitated just a second too long. "Ethan. I'm new in operations." Lucie nodded slowly, accepting that vague half-answer only because she was too tired to argue. "Ethan. Okay." She grabbed the iPad from his hands, avoiding eye contact. "Well, Ethan, I need coffee. A lot of it. I know a place," he said surprisingly fast. "Bluebird Brew, Times Square. You ever been?" She blinked again. That was her spot. Her secret escape. "Yeah," she said. "I like it." He smiled. "Good taste." With that, he turned and walked out like he belonged there, like he wasn't a complete mystery wrapped in late-night charm. Lucie watched him go, unsure if any of it had even happened. Later that morning, she returned to Bluebird Brew, partly to shake the night off and partly hoping, stupidly, that she'd run into him. But the cafe was its usual crowded blur. "No, Ethan." She got her cappuccino and walked back to Linux, where the day sprinted forward. Meetings, emails, deadlines. The proposal went out, revised version and all. No one asked who fixed it. That night, back at her tiny apartment, Lucie collapsed on her couch, remote in one hand, comfort Chinese in the other. Netflix auto-played something she'd already watched 3 times. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey, I'm kinda stuck. Creative block. Mind helping a new guy out?" She stared at the screen. "Ethan." Lucie stared at her phone longer than she should have, rereading the message like it might change meaning. Ethan had found her number somehow, but more than that, he remembered her. Against her better judgment, she replied, "Creative block, huh? Ever heard of ChatGPT?" 3 dots blinked for a while. Then his reply came. "AI, not really my thing. Feels like letting the robots win." She smiled despite herself. "So you'd rather suffer in silence than ask for help from an algorithm?" "I'd rather Ask someone smarter than a bot. Her fingers hovered, then typed back. Flattery's lazy, Ethan. If you want help, meet me early tomorrow. Same cafe. He answered instantly. You mean I get to see you twice in 2 days? That's a better offer than therapy. She rolled her eyes, but something inside her sparked. The next morning, Bluebird Brew was alive with the usual 8 a.m. chaos. Lucie took her usual table by the window. Ethan arrived exactly 3 minutes late with 2 coffees and a look that said he'd been up all night thinking of how not to mess this up. Black, no sugar. Right? He said, handing her the cup. Lucky guess, she replied, already opening her laptop. Let's fix your creative block before you make another bad decision. He chuckled. Like texting my boss at midnight? She didn't answer, but her smirk did. She asked what the project was. He told her it was for an upcoming ad campaign involving virtual experiences. A pitch for the board. So, she said, you're in marketing? He hesitated. I'm learning. Lucie shrugged. Fine, let me show you something. She opened ChatGPT, explained how prompts worked, and typed a few examples. Ethan watched, impressed. You make this look like magic, he said. It's just logic and curiosity, she replied. 2 things most men forget to use. He laughed, then stared at her. You ever take vacations? He asked out of nowhere. Lucie blinked. What? You know, when you leave the city and let your brain rest. I'm told it's healthy. She laughed. I don't have time for rest. Deadlines love me too much. Well, let's pretend. If you could go anywhere tomorrow, where would you escape to? He asked. Lucie leaned back. Lake Louise, Canada. Quiet, beautiful, and nothing's urgent there. Ethan grinned. Perfect, I'll book us a flight. She raised an eyebrow. You're ridiculous. They finished their coffees, the vibe oddly light for 2 people who barely knew each other. On the walk back to the office building, Ethan kept the mood playful. So tomorrow we pack, right? She laughed again. Only after I finish 1,000 soul-draining tasks. In the lobby of Linux, Ethan glanced toward the front desk. I need to grab my badge. Want to meet for lunch later? We can talk flight options. Flight to what, your imagination? She teased. He winked. You'll never know if you don't show up. Lucie left him at the elevator and headed to her floor. As soon as she stepped out, the executive assistant from the CEO's office flagged her down. Ms. Navarro, Mr. Hargrave would like to see you now. Lucie blinked. The CEO? Yes. Top floor, conference room. Her heart thundered as the elevator rose. What could this possibly be? She'd never even met Mr. Hargrave. Stories of his strictness were legendary. He was the kind of man who once made a VP cry during a quarterly review. And now he wanted to see her? The elevator dinged and opened to marble floors, silence, and the smell of wealth. The assistant guided her to the largest boardroom she'd ever seen. Inside, directors, shareholders, department heads, and at the far end, Mr. Hargrave himself, in a navy suit that screamed authority. He stood as she entered, voice calm but firm. Lucie Navarro, the analyst who caught the error that almost cost us everything. Her eyes widened. How? I read the logs. Your revision saved this company from a lawsuit and public disaster. Gasps murmured around the table. Mr. Hargrave gestured to her. Everyone, give her the recognition she deserves. Polite applause filled the room. Lucie stood frozen. Her mind screamed at her to say something, anything, but her throat stayed dry. The CEO continued. The employee responsible has been removed. We'd like you to step into their position. It's not yet what you deserve, but it's a start. We expect great things from you. Lucie finally managed a quiet, thank you. You wanted to help. Just then the door opened again. Ethan strolled in, calm and perfectly timed. Hargrave lit up. Ethan, do you know Lucie? Ethan smiled. She taught me about AI yesterday. Lucie turned toward him, blood draining from her face. Hargrave clapped Ethan on the shoulder. This is Charles Walsh's son. He'll be stepping into A more active leadership role while Charles takes a leave. Lucie's stomach dropped. She turned to Ethan wide-eyed. He gave her a sheepish shrug. "You're the owner's son?" she whispered under her breath as the room resumed its agenda. Ethan leaned over. "Technically, no. My father is, and you didn't ask." She stared at him, stunned. "You let me think you were an intern. You let yourself think that." Hargrave gave Lucie the rest of the day off to familiarize herself with her new role. When she entered her former office, chaos greeted her. Papers everywhere, 3 half-drunk. Coffee's sticky notes stuck to the monitor like confetti. She sighed, half amused, half embarrassed. She began cleaning, organizing documents into folders, making a mental note to never let her new office get this bad. Half an hour later, Ethan appeared at the door frame, arms crossed, watching her. "I was going to offer to carry those, but you seem stubborn." She rolled her eyes. "I thought you were an intern. I was going to ask you to haul this mess to the archive." He grinned. "Sorry to disappoint. I'm just your boss's son. Doesn't come with moving privileges." "Good. I prefer doing things myself," she replied. Lucie didn't look up as Ethan crossed the threshold of her new office. He stood there for a second, hands in his pockets, like he wasn't sure if he was invited. "I wanted to say congrats. Also, the pitch we worked on, it got approved." She didn't smile. "That's great," she said curtly, eyes still on the documents. "Looks like we'll have to keep working together then." His tone was light, but her silence dragged. "Lucie?" he asked. "What are you doing, Ethan?" she finally said, voice low. "Doing," he echoed. She stood, arms crossed. "You let me believe you were an intern. You never corrected me. Why play dumb?" He blinked. "I wasn't playing. I just didn't think it mattered." Her stare sharpened. "It matters. Honesty always matters." He sighed, leaning against the wall. "I'm not my father. I wasn't born to run a company. I was studying advertising, trying to find my own place. When I met you, I didn't want to lead with a last name." Lucie shook her head, lips tight. "I get that, but still, you watched me panic about deadlines, while you stood there sipping lattes and giving charming little smirks." He laughed softly. "Hey, I did offer to help." "Yeah," she snapped, after pretending to need help first. His smile faded. "Lucie, I liked talking to you. You treated me like a real person, not a project, not a future CEO, just She softened slightly, but the walls stayed up. "Well, maybe just you should have been honest from the start." There was a pause between them, heavy but not hostile. "Can I make it up to you?" he asked. "Dinner. No pretense, no pressure, just food, and maybe a little groveling." She shook her head, a dry laugh escaping. "Dinner with my boss's son? Sounds like a bad headline." Ethan tilted his head. "We can skip the groveling part." "Sorry," she said, gathering papers. "Not tonight. I have a very intense date with a bowl of noodles and Emily in Paris." He blinked. "Emily in what?" "Don't judge. It's escapism. Try it sometime." He stepped closer, watching her carefully. "Okay, no dinner, but can I give you a ride home?" She looked up. "No offense, but I'd rather not be chauffeured by corporate royalty tonight." His grin returned. "Fair, but if you change your mind, call me." That night, Lucie threw her heels aside and fell onto the couch. The apartment was quiet, lit only by her TV screen and the hum of the city outside. She played the next episode of her show, but her mind wandered and her stomach fluttered for no reason at all. She didn't want to admit that Ethan made her feel seen, not for her job, not for her numbers, but for the way she talked, thought, smirked. Still, none of it mattered. Men like him didn't end up with girls who fixed spreadsheets at 4 a.m. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Do you have a prompt to help me finish the second half of our pitch? The bot's ignoring me again. Lucie smiled involuntarily. Typing back. Keep talking to it. The more it hears from you, the better it gets, just like people. He replied within seconds. People still scare me more than robots. She stared at the text. Something about it felt real, honest. Before she could overthink, another message arrived. Coffee tomorrow? I'll be at Bluebird. Your table. No tricks, just caffeine. She didn't reply that night. But she didn't block him either, and that meant something. The next morning she arrived at Bluebird Brew 10 minutes early. Ethan was already there. Same table, 2 coffees, 2 smiles, one hesitant, one surprised. You're early, she said. You're late, he teased. She arched a brow. By what, a second? Every second without you here felt longer, he said smoothly. She rolled her eyes, but her cheeks betrayed her with the faintest hint of a blush. They talked about the pitch again, but less about work and more about ideas, emotions, people. Creativity's weird, he said. It's more feeling than skill sometimes, she nodded. It's like cooking, too much planning ruins the flavor. They lingered over their coffee, letting the moment stretch. Something unspoken danced between them, comfortable and a little dangerous. So, he said, sipping, are we still going to Lake Louise? She chuckled. Let me survive this. Week first. When they stood to leave, he touched her arm. Light, brief, but warm. I'm glad you came, he said, and I'm glad you yelled at me yesterday. I didn't yell, she replied. You did it with your eyes, he said. Very effective. They parted ways at the building lobby. No promises, no pressure, but her steps felt lighter, and his gaze followed her until the elevator doors closed. Whatever this was, it wasn't nothing. It was something beginning. Lucie entered her new office on Monday morning with a knot in her stomach and a folder clutched like a shield. The space was brighter, higher up, with a view she'd never had access to before. Her name was already printed on the glass. Director, Strategic Oversight. It felt surreal. The desk was pristine, and so was the pressure. Every ping on her new phone meant someone expected her to know something, decide something, fix something. Still, she moved with quiet determination. She was used to surviving at the bottom. Maybe she could thrive at the top. Around 10:12 a.m., her phone buzzed. Ethan. How's your throne, Queen of Contracts? She chuckled and typed back, less crown, more caffeine. And I'm buried under emails? He answered. Let me know if you need me to storm the castle with snacks. She ignored him for a while. Too many reports, too many people knocking on her door. But just before lunch, she cracked and sent, bring chocolate or don't bother showing your face. He sent a selfie from the elevator holding 2 chocolate croissants like a trophy. She smiled, despite herself. When he dropped them off, he didn't linger. Didn't want to interrupt royalty, he whispered with a wink. But I'll be in the war room if you need anything creative or chaotic. She shook her head, biting the corner of her lip. You're impossible. Only part-time, he said. That afternoon, in between approval cycles and pitch reviews, they kept texting. What's your favorite season? Fall. Central Park turns gold. Everything smells like cinnamon and nostalgia. 10 seconds later. Meet me there. After work. Lucie stared at the message longer than necessary. She didn't reply, but at 6:42 p.m., she stepped into the cool air outside the office and walked toward the edge of Central Park. The city was exhaling, the sky deepening to amber. She saw him, near a bench, jacket slung over one shoulder like something out of a movie. You came, he said softly. I wasn't sure. Lucie shrugged. Figured I owed you for the croissant. They walked slowly, no real direction. Just silence, branches overhead, the occasional bark of a dog or laugh of a child. It felt real. He told her about his dad, how Charles had built the company from nothing, how he'd been hard, distant, but brilliant. He never thought creativity had value. He wanted me to lead, but I always felt too colorful for his grayscale. She nodded, understanding more than she expected. She told him about growing up in a small town where ambition made you weird. How she used to write poems on napkins in diners and dream of the skyline she now saw from her office. Sometimes I still feel like I'm pretending, she confessed. Like one mistake and I disappear. You're not pretending, Ethan said, stopping to look at her. I watched you carry that company on your back at 4 a.m. I've never seen anyone so steady. Lucie looked away, unsure how to respond. Compliments from Ethan felt loaded, like he meant every word. They reached the edge of the lake, the surface reflecting scattered city lights. He pointed to a rock near the path. That's my favorite thinking spot. When I don't want to be the boss's son. She sat first. He joined her, their shoulders close but not touching. Want to play a game? He asked. Always, she replied. One lie, two truths. Too easy. Let's do firsts. Like? First time you thought about kissing me, he said casually. She laughed, surprised by his boldness. You're assuming I have. He tilted his head. So I was the only one wondering? Lucie met his eyes. The moment stretched. Her voice dropped. Maybe I wondered. The night you stole my iPad. He smiled slowly, like she'd confirmed a long-held suspicion. Then I guess I'm not the only one losing sleep. They sat in that silence again. That lovely, stretching stillness filled with things neither wanted to break. Then, without a word, he leaned slightly. Slowly, no pressure, just presence. And she met him halfway. The kiss was soft, curious. It tasted like cold air, croissants, and relief. She wasn't sure who sighed first, but when they pulled apart, her cheeks were warm. That wasn't in the contract, she whispered. No, he said, but I'm willing to draft a new one. She laughed, resting her head briefly on his shoulder. I should go. Of course, he said, though his voice barely hid his disappointment. She stood, brushing off her coat. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Lucie. He stayed. On the bench as she walked away. She didn't turn around, but she smiled the whole way home. The next morning, Lucie arrived at work earlier than usual, her mind still spinning from the kiss. She told herself it was just a moment, a fluke born from tired feet and a glowing lake. A storybook mistake, nothing more. But her heart wasn't buying it. She buried herself in reports, barely responding to Ethan's light, "Good morning," as he passed her office. He slowed at her door, waiting, but she didn't look up. Eventually, he walked on. She told herself it was better this way, less messy, less risky. Still, around lunchtime, her phone buzzed. Ethan. So, any regrets? Asking for a friend who kisses well under moonlight. She stared at the screen, then locked it without replying. This was dangerous territory, and she'd promised herself she wouldn't drown again. For the rest of the week, Ethan kept his distance, but not too far. He'd drop a post-it on her desk. Lunch? She'd shake her head. Maybe next time. He'd shrug, smile, and walk away. No pressure, no guilt, just quiet consistency. On Friday evening, she sat on her couch, half watching a rom-com when her phone rang. It was her mom. Her voice shook. Lucie, your dad, he collapsed in the field. They rushed him to St. Mark's. He's stable, but can you come this weekend? She was already packing a bag before the call ended. Her mind raced. Train times, rental cars, flights. Then impulsively, she texted Ethan. My dad's in the hospital. I need to leave town tonight. 3 dots. Then, where are you? I'll drive. She hesitated, but something about the offer, calm, without question, softened her. I'll be outside in 30. By the time she stepped onto the curb, he was pulling up in a sleek black SUV, coffee in one hand and worry in his eyes. Let's go, he said. The drive out of New York was quiet at first, filled with the hum of tires and the occasional GPS voice. Lucie stared out the window, hands knotted in her lap. You didn't have to come, she murmured. I know, Ethan said, but I wanted to. 2 hours in, the silence loosened. She started talking about her dad, the way he whistled off-key, how he always smelled like sawdust and mint gum. Ethan listened, nodding, adding nothing unnecessary. She appreciated that words were fragile tonight. They arrived after midnight. The town was sleeping under a blanket of stars, the streets lit by amber lamps and closed diners. Her childhood home still had the same blue porch swing, creaking softly in the breeze. You sure you want to stay here? She asked. Ethan smiled. If you have an extra pillow, I can handle anything. Inside, her mom greeted them at the door, red-eyed but strong. Lucie, she whispered, pulling her daughter close. Then looked at Ethan. And you are? Support, he said simply. Temporary, if needed. Lucie's childhood bedroom hadn't changed. Posters, old journals, a shelf of worn-out books. Ethan took the guest room next door, promising not to snore. You nervous? He asked as she lingered in the hallway. Terrified, she said, but I'm glad you're here. The next morning was full of coffee, scrambled eggs, and the hum of small-town chatter. Lucie's mom insisted Ethan stay for breakfast. You helped my daughter in the city, right? In small ways, he replied, earning a knowing look from her mom. When they arrived at the hospital, her dad was awake, hooked up to machines but cracking jokes. So you're the boss's son, he said, shaking Ethan's hand. I thought you'd be taller. Lucie laughed for the first time in days. Ethan just grinned. Afterward, they returned to the house and Lucie showed him around the backyard. Chickens clucked near a coop. You ever feed one? She asked. Ethan looked skeptical. Do I look like I've fed a chicken before? No, she said, but I'm about to enjoy this. She handed him a small bucket of grain and watched as he hesitantly approached. The chickens swarmed, pecking enthusiastically. Ethan yelped and dropped the bucket. Okay, that's enough national. Geographic for one day. Lucie nearly doubled over laughing. That afternoon they sat on the porch swing with lemonade in mason jars. Your family's amazing, Ethan said. Loud, honest, messy, I like it. Lucie glanced at him. It's not much. It's everything, he replied. I didn't grow up with this. Later, Lucie's cousins stopped by, 2 teens and a toddler who instantly took to Ethan. Within minutes he was sitting cross-legged on the carpet, building Lego towers and making roaring dinosaur noises. Lucie watched from the doorway, arms crossed, eyes softening. That night after dinner, her mom pulled her aside in the kitchen. He likes you, you know, she said, rinsing a dish. It's not just the way he looks at you. It's the way he listens. Don't run from that. Lucie said nothing, but she felt everything. When they finally drove back to the city on Sunday evening, the air in the car was different. Closer, quieter, comfortable. As they reached her apartment, she turned to him. You want to come in? Only if we're not watching Emily in Paris, he teased. She rolled her eyes. Finished it. He smiled. Then I'm in. Inside, she reheated leftover lasagna while he picked a playlist. They talked about everything and nothing, laughter weaving through the walls like a secret they shared without needing to define it. On the couch, their hands brushed. Her head found his shoulder. His fingers gently traced hers. The kiss came again, slower this time, deeper, like something honest, unafraid. As they pulled away, she whispered, "I don't want to ruin this." Ethan smiled. "So, let's make this work." Lucie leaned against the kitchen counter, watching Ethan explore her bookshelf like it was a museum exhibit. He read the spines aloud: romance, poetry, a few fantasy trilogies, and chuckled. "So this is where you keep your alternate verses?" She smiled. "They're easier than the real one." He turned to her, a softness in his eyes that wasn't playful. "Are you sure?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Come here," she said quietly. They sat back on the couch, the city glowing behind her windows, but it was the way his eyes searched. Hers that lit up the room. The kiss this time wasn't hesitant. It was full of quiet certainty, as if they had both stopped pretending they didn't want this. Her fingers found his collar. His hand gently traced the line of her jaw. There was no rush, just warmth, just breath, just them. When things grew slower, deeper, her body against his, hearts moving in rhythm, Lucie froze for a second, her forehead resting on his chest. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I don't know how to do this. Not like this." Ethan didn't move away. He simply brushed her hair back and whispered, "Me neither." She looked up. "You've never," he smiled gently, "never done this with someone who actually mattered. So, maybe we learn it together. A first time that actually lasts." She exhaled slowly, something tight inside her chest loosening. They pulled the blanket over their shoulders and sank into one another, not to lose themselves, but to find a rhythm they both could breathe in. No one performed, no one pretended, just feeling. That night they didn't fall asleep so much as drift into each other, his arm around her waist, her cheek against his heartbeat. The room was quiet except for the occasional sigh, and at one point, when she stirred, he whispered, "Still here, not going anywhere." In the morning, sunlight slipped through her curtains like a secret. Lucie woke up before him, watching his face soften in sleep, a piece of hair out of place on his forehead. She reached out and brushed it back, wondering how something so simple could feel so sacred. She made coffee, padding quietly across the floor, letting him sleep. Her heart felt different, full and restless at the same time, like part of her had been rearranged, like maybe love wasn't fireworks or declarations. Maybe it was this, calm, present, real. He joined her minutes later, wearing her gray hoodie, and a sleepy smile. "So this is how morning people live," he joked. "You get used to it," she said, handing him a mug. Their fingers brushed. No sparks, just warmth. Just the kind of contact that doesn't need language. The next few days, something unspoken settled between them. They didn't label it. They didn't rush. But it was in the way he always saved her a seat in meetings, or the way she brought 2 coffees without asking. Something blooming in the quiet. They shared small things, grocery runs, midday texts, a Spotify playlist that became their unofficial background music. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a movie. But sometimes Lucie caught herself smiling at her screen like a teenager and realized this was becoming hers. But fear lingered. It showed up when she least expected. In a glance, a silence, a delay in his reply. "You okay?" he asked one Night after work, brushing crumbs from her blouse as they ate Thai on her couch. Yeah, she lied. Just tired. He didn't push. Later, she stood at the bathroom mirror staring at herself. What are you so afraid of? That he'll leave, that it won't last, that it's too good to be true, or that it will be true, and she won't know what to do with that? The next morning, Ethan surprised her by showing up at her office with a bag of her favorite muffins. I figured you skipped breakfast again, he said, placing them on her desk. Also, I miss you when you hide behind email threads. Her heart fluttered. You make it too easy, she said. He tilted his head. Then let me make it harder. Come with me this weekend. I don't know where yet. Pick a direction. Let's get lost on purpose. She blinked. Why? Because I want to see who you are when the city's not watching. That night, as they laid side by side again, no expectations, no scripts, she whispered. You scare me. He didn't flinch. Good, he replied. That means it's real. She closed her eyes, smiling into the dark. I don't want it to end. Then don't let it. He kissed her shoulder. We'll figure it out, he said. You and your spreadsheets, me and my mess. She laughed quietly, rolling to face him. Deal. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a contract. But it was the beginning of something both of them finally believed in. It started small. A knowing glance in the break room. 2 coffee cups instead of one on her desk. A shared umbrella on a rainy Wednesday. People noticed, of course. Offices are ecosystems of whispers. But Lucie pretended not to hear the buzz growing around her. At first, she brushed it off with grace. She'd earned her place. No one could deny her work ethic or results. Still, it was hard to ignore the change in tone, the polite smiles that felt too polished, the passive-aggressive compliments. You're glowing lately, someone said. Promotion suits you. Ethan seemed unaffected. He walked through the office with the same calm charm as always. But Lucie felt it differently, like she was under a microscope. Her every success now viewed through the lens of who she was with, instead of what she'd done. One morning, during a strategy meeting, someone made a snide remark about sleeping your way into innovation. It wasn't said to her directly, but she heard it. Everyone did. Her cheeks flushed, her stomach dropped, and she suddenly felt like a stranger in her own chair. After the meeting, she shut herself in her office and stared at her screen, unable to focus. She remembered all the late nights, the documents, the sacrifices. None of it seemed to matter now, just a kiss, just his name, just the shadows others painted over her. That evening, she left before Ethan could ask what was wrong. Her phone buzzed with his messages. Everything okay? You vanished. Did I do something? She didn't answer. She didn't know how to explain that it wasn't him. It was the world around them. The next morning, she skipped the shared coffee run. She walked straight to her desk, kept her door closed, and ignored the texts piling up. She needed time to breathe, to think. But the walls were closing in, and doubt had already taken a seat beside her. By lunch, Ethan was knocking at her door. Hey, he said, not stepping inside yet. Talk to me. She hesitated, then motioned him in. They're talking, she finally said. They're saying things. About me. About us. And I don't know if I can carry that weight. Ethan sat across from her, his eyes steady. Lucie, people will always talk. Especially when someone shines brighter than they're used to. I don't want to be seen as the woman who got ahead because of who she's dating, she said, voice tight. I worked too hard for that. He reached across the desk, covering her hand gently. And you think I don't know that? He said quietly. My whole life has been about people assuming things. That I was handed everything. That I didn't Earn a thing, but you, Lucy, you saved the company, that was you. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. I don't know if I belong in your world. He smiled gently. Then let me remind you where you do belong. Before she could respond, he stood up and left without saying a word. She had worried all afternoon about what he would do. But in the early evening he appeared at her door, his expression serene. Come with me, just for 20 minutes. No more hiding. She followed him, uncertain. They stepped into the elevator and he pressed the button for the rooftop. Her heart thudded louder with each floor. What is this? She asked. A reminder, he said, and a risk, because you're worth taking one. When the doors opened, the rooftop had been transformed. There were string lights, soft, golden, romantic. A table set for two, and a signboard that read, "This is Lucie Navarro, the woman who saved us." She froze, breath caught in her chest. The wind tugged at her coat. The view stretched across Manhattan, glowing like a million quiet hearts. Ethan stepped forward. I know what they're saying. I know how this looks. But none of that changes who you are or what you've done. And I won't let anyone forget that. Lucy felt something crack open in her chest. A mix of fear and awe and disbelief. You did all this? Of course I did, he said. You think I was just going to let whispers rewrite your story? She laughed through the tears. You're ridiculous. Only for you. He held out a chair for her. Sit just for a few minutes. Let the skyline remind you that you've climbed farther than most people ever will. She hesitated, then sat. The chair was warm from the sun, and for the first time in days, so was her heart. They didn't eat much, but they talked. About where they'd come from and where they might go. About fear and pride and how hard it is to stay soft when the world is sharp. Ethan didn't try to fix it all. He just listened, and sometimes that was enough. Before they left, he leaned close, voice low. I'm not with you because it's easy or convenient. I'm with you because you're the most capable, thoughtful, terrifyingly brilliant person I've ever met. And you make me want to be a better man. Her breath caught again. They stepped back into the elevator together. The air between them felt different, stronger, more certain. When they reached her floor, Lucy turned to him and smiled. Okay, let's face the whispers together. He grinned. Mornings became their secret ritual. Lucy made the coffee, always too strong. Ethan scrambled the eggs, always too soft. They left notes on mirrors, debated over toothpaste brands, shared playlists and headlines. Love slipped into routine like sunlight through curtains, quiet, constant, necessary. At work they found a rhythm. Lucy led creative strategy meetings with poise. Ethan bridged leadership and legacy with ease. Sometimes they disagreed. Sometimes sparks flew, but always with respect. We don't need to be perfect, she'd say, just honest. And they were. Lunch breaks were spent in hidden cafes or park benches, away from office stairs. They never flaunted their relationship, but they didn't hide it either. The company thrived. Whispers faded. And together they rose, not above. Others, but side by side without apology. One rainy Tuesday, Ethan showed her a screenshot from months ago, their first text exchange. Remember this? He grinned. When I couldn't use ChatGPT and claimed I feared robot overlords. She laughed, shaking her head. I should have charged you hourly. Weeks later, she came home to a suitcase on her bed and a note. Pack for warm weather. Your vacation starts now. She blinked, confused, until she remembered. That morning in Times Square, their first breakfast, their first joke about taking a trip together. They landed in Santorini at sunset. Blue domes, white, Rooftops, the sea glimmering like melted glass. "This is real," Lucie whispered as they stepped into their private villa. "This is us." Ethan kissed her forehead. "It always was, we just hadn't gotten here yet." They swam in silence, toes brushing underwater, ate grilled octopus by the shore, danced to music from someone else's window, read under the same blanket until the stars came out. It wasn't perfect, but it was everything. Tangled sheets, shared dreams, no script. One night, lying on a stone balcony with the Aegean sky above them, Lucie whispered, "What if this is the best it ever gets?" Ethan turned to her, smiling. "Then we've already won." She closed her eyes. "Let's keep winning, even on the bad days." When they returned to New York, life resumed. There were stressful calls, tight deadlines, unexpected fights, but also makeups, home-cooked dinners, and late-night walks holding hands like teenagers. Because the real love stories are lived in the in-betweens, and sometimes she'd wake up before him, just to look at his face in the quiet, just to remember how far they'd come, just to remind herself that this wasn't a dream. It was better, because it came with complications, sacrifices, and choice. Her dad got stronger. Her mom visited more often. Ethan's father eventually stepped down with pride. And Lucie? She found herself not only in love, but in purpose. A voice in the room. A leader. A woman no longer afraid of how people saw her. They celebrated their first anniversary back where it all began. That little cafe near Times Square. The waitress remembered them. The couple from the window seat. She smiled. "You looked like strangers in love that day." Lucie laughed. "Turns out, we were." That night, as they walked home, Ethan stopped under a flickering street lamp and asked, "If you had to do it all over again, every awkward meeting, every whisper, every late night, would you?" Lucie paused. "Only if it ended here. With you now." If you ask Lucie how it all happened, she might laugh and say, "It all started with a cup of bitter coffee." But the truth is, it started with believing love could grow in unlikely places. That what looked like a mess was just a plot twist in disguise. Life, after all, is not a perfect story. It's messy, complicated, full of miscommunication, small miracles, and people who surprise you. It's laughter in kitchens, tears in boardrooms, a canceled meeting turning into a shared coffee that changes everything. And if you're still here, listening, maybe it's because you believe too. Maybe you're waiting for your own unexpected beginning. Or maybe you're already in it and just don't know how beautiful the middle is. Either way, you're not alone, because some stories feel too magical to be real. Too emotional to be just fiction. Too full of longing, light, and love to be anything but fan-made dreams. But this was real. And yes, it was almost a fanfic, and maybe there are more stories like this waiting to be told. More beginnings hidden in elevator rides, shared glances, or late-night texts. You just have to keep your eyes open. Because when it's real, it won't feel like fiction. It'll feel like finally, the end. But also, maybe the beginning of something else. Stick around. The next story might already be unfolding.